How does mental illness play into addiction? It's part 2. Jerry Owens is in the house today live on Recovery Monday.
I am redeemed. You set me free. So I'll shake off these heavy chains and wipe away every stain. That I'm not who I used to be. I am redeemed.
3 minutes after the hour on this Recovery Monday on 99.3 KTIA, sponsored by Powell CDC. Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat, watching the chat along with Lila Stafford, my co-host. And this is a continuation of a show that we started last week with Jerry Owens, and I found it so interesting that I totally dominated the conversation and didn't let him talk about the things that he thinks you need to hear about. So I'm sorry. I'm making amends to you. I'm asking for your forgiveness, and today we're going to give the floor to Jerry, although I won't be completely quiet, and talk about the mental illness that strikes so many Americans and how that leads to really bad compulsive activities or actions. Maybe it's alcoholism, maybe it's drug use, maybe it's shoe shopping, maybe it's gambling, maybe it's pornography. But at the root of so many, what we see, the addiction that we see, is really masking the mental illness that the person suffers from. So, Jerry, welcome back, and I appreciate you being here again today.
Thank you.
So, co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders. You gave me a sheet last week that says 50% of individuals with a substance use disorder will also have a mental health disorder.
Exactly.
What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
We don't know for sure. It's hard to study that, but I guess my opinion would be it's about half and half.
Okay.
For about
half of the people?
Yeah, for half of the people, the mental health addiction came first, and with the other half, the addiction came first.
So you're telling me that 50% of the people that I sit in 12-step rooms with have mental illness?
Yes.
It's got to be you, Lila, it's not me.
Yes, yeah.
Wow. I remember one day, have you...
Didn't that make you feel better, though, really?
Well, does it make me feel better? Yes, I guess so. What concerns me is, do they know it?
Well, what concerns me is how do we define, or how are we going to define mental illness? Do we have a huge wide range of what that falls under?
Well, you know what we say on The View from a Pew is if you don't have a relationship with your creator, I feel you've got a mental disorder.
Right,
you've got something blocking your ability to have a relationship with your creator. That's got to be busted. That's a busted something.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying is
Sure.
I think a lot of people can fall under that, however you define it.
Yeah, and what I'll do as we get into this, there's, I'm going to cover anxiety disorders and mood disorders. Those are the two biggest groups, and those are, within those groups you have like the common cold and mental illness, those kinds of categories. So I'll talk about those as we get into things.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Well, the first group is mood disorders, and the diagnosis I would want to talk about there is called major depressive disorder or depression.
Could I just call it depression?
Depression's much easier.
Okay. That's a biggie, isn't it?
Now,
really.
depression with most mental health disorders, it's equal between sexes, where men and women have about the same amount. With depression, women have it twice as often as men, and we don't really know why that is.
Is there something in a CAT scan or an MRI where we can see the biological part of depression?
No, we don't have that kind of clarity. The only obvious difference would be, the hormonal differences between men and women, but, we don't know. We know it, we thought maybe that was just in the United States, but, when you study the incidence of mental health disorders, that's called epidemiology, And this occurs in all countries. But the main symptoms of depression, the first thing, people's batteries are just dead. They have no energy. And simple things like, calling up one of your children or brushing your teeth or getting out of bed or cleaning the house, all those things just seem like it's moving a boulder. Okay, that's the main presenting symptom. The second thing is beliefs about ourselves become so distorted.
Ding, 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 ding.
We see ourselves as unlovable. Okay.
Let me
see
ask.
ourselves as worst of the worst. When I talk to someone that's depressed,
Get a little closer to the mic,
I'll
would
say
you, Jerry?
something like, "What do you do for fun?" And they'll look at me like, "Why are you asking me that question?" They'll start to cry. And they'll say something like, "Well, I used to love being with my grandchildren, but that doesn't even work anymore." That's what depression is. Okay? Things that used to make us happy don't make us happy.
So that's how you see yourself, correct? And you don't like
that's
what
how
you see.
Yeah, exactly. But their view of their self is so distorted in most cases. I mean, they see themselves as evil in some cases when they're not, or bad, or unlovable.
But does that start in childhood?
No, that varies a lot. I mean, that it may, but typically you'll see people who are functioning pretty well, and it'll happen fairly quickly. Okay, it'll be usually precipitated by something, but but in most cases it doesn't.
Okay, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
If someone comes to you and they don't love themselves, what do you do so that they can start loving themselves? What process do they have to go through?
I mean, for me,
I know the answer to that.
okay, the one for me is, but I'm a mental health counselor, I'm a mental health therapist, so we all have different ways of doing this. And there's probably lots of different answers for that are accurate. But for me, what I would first want to do is identify if they have a mental health disorder and what specific disorder is it. Because if you identify the specific disorder, then that's going to tell you what to do to treat it.
I see.
So that's my shtick, so to speak.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, for other people, if they saw someone, depending on their frame of reference, they may want to do something different. And they may be just as right as I am. So, I mean, so if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything's going to look like a nail.
Yeah.
And that's the universe I'm looking at the world through. It's mental health stuff.
All right, I'm going to be devil's advocate for a
Okay.
minute. Okay. My wife used to have a saying that said, just get over yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it sounds like they need to do. You just need to. What do you mean your grandchildren don't bring you joy anymore? That's nobody's fault but your own. That's not a biological characteristic. That is a decision that you've made. But I'm wrong, aren't I?
In some cases. I mean, the treatment for depression, the most common is a group of antidepressants called SSRIs. So the most popular one a while ago was Prozac, now Lexapro, but there's a number of different of those kinds of medications. There's Effexor. And then if you blend that with specific kinds of psychotherapy, a cognitive behavioral model where you get at all the distorted thinking, or an interpersonal model when you get at some of what you were just talking about. Why is it I feel so separated from people?
What about Cymbalta?
Cymbalta would be one of those too. That fits in that group, and that would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I was told once that once everything else doesn't work, and right before we give you electric shock treatment, you get Cymbalta.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the, that's called an SNRI because it hits 2 neuroreceptor sites rather than 1. But the thing I want to say is depression is very treatable. 80% of the people you treat get significantly better within 6 months. And when I first went out and hung up a shingle working in a private practice situation, I got a lot of women referred to me who sincerely wanted to get sober. They were doing everything right. They were going to meetings, they were work in a recovery program, but they kept relapsing. And with about half of those women, they had an undiagnosed depression.
Yeah.
And once we got that treated, you know, if you get treated for medication for depression and the medicine works, people are they're gonna see the world with different eyes. They're gonna say, "Oh my gosh, this is what normal people feel like. I didn't know I could feel this good."
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
And so often they think that they can feel this way naturally and they don't need the medicine anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then they go off the meds and things go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jerry Owen is our guest today. Jerry Owens, he is a mental health specialist at Powell CDC, a mental health counselor, and we're talking about mental health today. So if someone's feeling depressed, there is something that can be done to improve that.
Yes.
That
unequivocally.
Unequivocally, okay.
Yeah.
So let's go to a tough subject here.
But it takes a while.
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it's going to be 4 to 6 months.
Right.
But I think that's part of some people who have depression or they're addicted, they want something, they want it now.
Right.
So to wait for this medication to start is difficult for them.
No, good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right, let's go one step deeper. What about the person who is clearly depressed, maybe suffers from some other undiagnosed disorders, but won't get help, won't seek any medical or psychological help?
I think in that point, I mean, most people have to suffer a while with their symptoms before they get help. You know, and if you look at it on a nationwide average, you know, you're looking for addicted people. Most people are addicted at least 6, 7, 8 years before they seek help. Okay? With mental health disorders, it's probably a similar number. I mean, because, you know, the only thing that's going to motivate us to change is we suffer that pain and we believe that we can't do anything about it. And you know, we finally humble ourselves to saying, I can't handle this myself and I need help from someone else.
Yeah.
But that's a slow process, and it's really hard for family members to see it and to see the people go through that. But the best thing we can do for them is educate them about the nature of the condition, you know, that kind of stuff.
Who educates them? Are you saying you as a counselor, therapist?
Oh no, I mean as family members. You know, I mean I remember.
Oh shoot!
But isn't it like being an alcoholic that you're not going to listen to your family? That you have to come to the conclusion that you need the help?
It depends. You know, I think if a mother has a good relationship with their child, you know, and they say something like, "Mary, you've really been sad for a while, and I feel awful because you used to be such a happy woman, or you used to be such a happy girl." I mean, I think those kinds of things said in that kind of manner are invaluable.
Right, but I'm just speaking from experience with different people that
Yeah.
it's like, don't insult me
Oh yeah,
by suggesting
you're right.
that I
you're
need
right.
help.
But I would never want to. I think it's ultimately the information we get from the people closest to us that helps us. You know, I think if we've said it once, then we need to pull back, that kind of stuff. Let me talk about a second mood disorder in addition to depression.
We have 1 minute.
It's called bipolar disorder.
Oh boy.
Okay.
We're going to take
And
more
what
than a minute.
happens here, I won't get it all, of course. You have the periods of the depression, but you also have periods of manic kinds of symptoms. And manic means it's not up and down. So many people think it just means when you're up and down. No, manic is, it's like we're redlining all the time. We have crazy ideas. We buy cars we can't afford. We gamble when we shouldn't gamble. We take unnecessary risks. We drive fast. We just talk and won't shut up. And we drive everybody around us crazy. That's manic.
All right, let's take our break and come back and talk more about that, because that's becoming a very popular, well, not popular, but a very highly diagnosed mental disorder.
Right.
Jerry Owens is our guest from Powell CDC. Lila and Bob in the house, and we'll be back on KTIA, Iowa.
from the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
A father who is headed toward another heart attack. A woman who struggles daily with diabetes and her memory. A boy whose headaches keep him out of school. A mother who one morning discovers a lump. A girl whose condition defies diagnosis. You come to us because you need answers, but you also need more. You need understanding of what you're going through. You need comfort. You need to be treated as an individual, not a condition. You need to be included in your own care. You are the point of everything we do. That's why we're changing to Unity Point Health. It's a model of care that will help us work better together, where the physician who knows you best takes the lead, coordinating your care through every step, from the hospital to specialists to rehabilitation to health services in the home and in the community, to making sure the treatments are effective. By working as a team, we surround you with care, helping you manage your health and your conditions, guiding you to making better choices and living a healthier life. The point of Unity is you. Unity Point Health.
This is Dan Fry, host of A Rebels Cause Radio, and I'm here to ask you a question. Are you tired of being marketed a second-rate product at a first-rate price? Or perhaps more importantly, do you want to wear something that shows who you are, which is a Christian, but doesn't look silly or even worse, just theologically incorrect? I want to introduce you to Wrath and Grace Clothing. They're a company that wants to provide you with clothes that you actually like, prices you can afford, and most importantly, they offer a sound, biblical message that represents who you are as a Christian. From the message presented in the graphics to the fit and finish, they have made their company on first-rate designs and high-quality fabrics and inks, and offered at a price you can afford. Wrath and Grace Clothing. Their mission is to proclaim the wrath and the grace of a sovereign God, one shirt at a time. Go to wrathandgrace.com to check out all their designs. That's wrathandgrace.com.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Okay, we're back 21 minutes after the hour on this 7th day of October. It is Recovery Monday with Powell, CDC. If you find that you or someone you know or love is suffering from some type of a hurt, habit, or hang-up, alcohol or drug addiction, especially prescription drug addiction, make sure you call Powell. They have outpatient treatment 7 days a week, right? 7 days a week?
Yes.
And there are specialized health counselors, mental health counselors, addict and alcoholic specialists there to help you. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's someone you know and love, and you just need somebody to talk to and help clear up whether your son or daughter or husband or wife or loved one or pastor might have a substance abuse problem and you need somebody safe to talk to. Call Powell CDC.
Can I give you the number?
Sure.
It's 515-263-2424.
Okay. All right, we are discussing mental disorders today in our continuing conversation with Jerry Owens. And I have a feeling we're going to have a third, maybe more show. But you just started talking about bipolar, and you described manic. And manic is, I'm asking you the question, is manic just the loudest, biggest, boldest action and voice and everything from somebody? Is that manic?
It can be. I mean, with someone who is manic, they show poor judgment. You know, so I'm not saying everybody who's bold and loud shows poor judgment, but the person that's manic does things that scare other people. that embarrass other people, that hurt other people.
Is it fair to say that those people might act unreasonably?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
I mean, and and with this, they have an impaired sense of empathy. They truly, think they have all the answers, and everybody else is just kind of a moron. And if they would just go along with their view of the world, they would be okay. So sometimes, if other people don't buy into what they're saying, they get pretty irritable.
Okay.
That kind of stuff.
Jerry, what do they really believe inside? I mean, do they believe that I'm a moron because I don't agree with them, or are they so scared of being rejected, abandoned, and betrayed that the action turns to, now you've offended me?
It depends when you talk to them. Okay. If they're in the height of a manic phase, they truly believe that they get it and other people don't. When they back off that, then they're going to have some of the more human vulnerability that you talk about, And so that's where they're in a depressive phase and a manic phase.
What's the difference between manic and psychotic?
Psychotic means you're out of touch with reality.
Unreasonable.
But in a you hear voices that aren't there. You see things that aren't there. You believe outrageous things like the president is wiretapping your phone, or someone is following you around all the time. There's typically paranoid themes that go along with psychosis.
What was the movie with Mel Gibson, and he played a psychotic? Remember, he thought they were following him.
Sure. I don't remember the name of it.
What that was either. But in the end, he was right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you never know.
In the end, he was right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, but with bipolar disorder, the thing that's unique about it is talk therapy really isn't going to be the key thing. The person needs to get on a medication that stabilizes their mood. Lithium is the most well-known one.
For manic.
Yeah, to deal with the manic kind of stuff. But that, that's what's going to help them. And typically, antidepressants probably aren't going to help them much. They need a mood stabilizer.
I was just going to say, remember when Mike Tyson years ago he was in a manic state, and then they tried, I think it was even on TV, they tried to do some counseling with him, and it did no good at all. And he even said it didn't do anything until he got the right medication.
I mean, and that's, again, that's why it's important to have an accurate diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because each of these disorders, I tell you, have a different kind of approach. And again, when we're looking at the addicted population, it's and most of the clients I see now that have an addiction are aware they have a mental disorder, and they know exactly what it is. Quite a few of them do. So, I think we've come a long ways, because I wouldn't have been able to answer it that way 10 years ago.
Can somebody who is psychotic be treated with medicine?
Yeah,
manic is not a talk therapy. It is a drug.
It is a drug. Psychosis is the same way. You're not going to talk someone out of a delusion. So you need to treat them with a medication called an antipsychotic.
Okay.
And again, that's going to bring down the intensity of that. It's not going to make it go away altogether. I mean, it's, it's probably happened a number of times. I've talked to someone who's addicted to amphetamines, and they may be off the amphetamines and looking pretty good in the interview, but they'll look at me and say, in all seriousness, see that Taurus out there? Yeah. Well, that's the feds. They've been following me for 6 months. And there's no way I could talk him out of that belief, that kind of stuff. That delusional.
What if you looked at him and said, "That's my Taurus"?
Yeah. He'd probably say, you work for the feds.
Okay. Well, no.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So reason doesn't connect.
Reason doesn't work. So, it in that sense, yeah. I mean, again, we're switching over to psychosis, but yeah, trying to talk to somebody out of a delusion is probably a waste of your time. And best case scenario, it's, you're going to get into, one of those circular things that doesn't go anywhere.
All right, we've got depression, bipolar, manic, and psychotic. What's another one?
Okay, the next group is anxiety disorders. And this, probably depression is the one that we see most often, but the next one is called generalized anxiety disorder. And what
Generalized.
Generalized anxiety disorder. And the easiest way to describe this, it's like a car whose RPMs are too high. They're redlining all the time. Someone who has anxiety, their mind, they can't turn their mind off, and they're constantly thinking about what went wrong yesterday or what's going to go wrong tomorrow. And when you talk to somebody, when I talk with somebody with anxiety disorder, it's kind of like they're not able to listen real well because they have so much white noise going on in their head, that kind of thing. And when I said, I think there's a number of people who have anxiety disorders who don't know it. Another way of saying it, someone's just too finely tuned. You know, the kid in second grade that's constantly worried about his mother, maybe has an anxiety disorder. That kind of stuff.
What did we call anxiety disorders 50 years ago?
I don't know.
Hyper?
I don't know what we called it. Yeah, I mean...
if you look around at some 12-step meetings, you can see there's several people whose legs are just going 1,000 miles an hour.
That's me.
You know, you can tell they're tense. They're and some of that's anxiety, some of it may not be, but it's interesting. Their bodies seem to be, the people I know with anxiety, their bodies are very tense, and they have problems sleeping because their mind can't turn off.
See, that's me, but I would never think of myself as being a person that has anxiety. I mean, right now below the table, my left foot is tapping at 12-step meetings. I usually got something rocking and rolling.
Yeah,
but I don't feel tense.
Yeah. But the most important thing for me, people with anxiety disorders do not have clarity in their thinking. When something goes wrong, they can't decide, is it my fault? Is it that other person's fault? And that's what I had before. I mean, I grew up with an anxiety disorder and didn't know it. And actually accidentally discovered by doing drugs, I wasn't anxious anymore.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I mean, again, all of us, that's part of why it's hard to diagnose these disorders, because we grow up with them and we don't have a frame of reference and we think it's normal. Okay? But, I can remember key things people said to me. I remember one of my running buddies said, "Jerry, you don't know if you're coming or going." It was in a period when I was just real anxious and I just couldn't focus very well, okay? And what happened for me, that was about a year after I, got off drugs, and I just started feeling, and to have any of these disorders, you also have to have functional impairment.
Functional impairment.
Right, okay. And that means, I was driving my wife nuts talking about this all the time. I was scared I was going to lose my job. I wasn't going to. I was doing very well. But in my mind, and it was, so work was miserable for me because I couldn't accurately perceive things around me, and it was bothering my wife a lot.
How were you doing your job so well then?
I don't know if I was doing it real well. I was doing it well enough that I didn't get in trouble, and I was doing a decent job. But I think once I got that treated, I think actually I was doing much better. Okay, that's a good question. That was important. I mean, because I get worried. Everybody that listens to these symptoms are going to have some of these. That's the human condition. But in order to meet criteria for a diagnosis, you have to have, a whole cluster of the symptoms. And you have to know, it's kind of like, I'm not being the husband I could be because of these symptoms. I'm not being the dad I can be. I'm not being the employee I can be. I really need some help. So
it gets in the way of life.
The train doesn't go off the track, kind of thing.
Jerry, is this worse in the society and the day we're living, or was it the same, like Mac was saying, 50 years ago? Is it worse now?
We don't know. I mean, it's, You know, I mean, I don't know. We don't know that.
You used a great term. This is just the human condition.
Yeah.
If this is just the human condition, then the answer, Bob, is yes. It's always been this way. We just are so intolerant of other people that now we have to point them out, hold them up, charge them, label them, make them take drugs, make them get help, fire them. I mean, right?
Or maybe we love them enough that we want to help them.
I think you're right, but I think those people are far and few between compared to 100 years ago. I think 100 years ago, you could count on every mom, every grandma, every sister, and yes, I am going female, to nurture and love people who acted out or was depressed or whatever it was. Nowadays, I don't think you're trained as a father or a mother. I mean, we used to watch our mothers and fathers do their jobs, and I don't mean their job at the office. I mean their job at home. And that's how we became men or we became women. Now what's the role model? TV? Yeah. All right. Jerry Owens is our guest today. He's a mental health counselor at Powell CDC, along with Lila and Bob Montserrat. We're coming back. Ryan is producing, and we appreciate you, Ryan. Thanks for being here. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you, thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Right here on the radio at 99.3 KTIA and on the web at webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.
Okay, we're back. 22 minutes before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Pastor Michael Mudloff from True Blue at Westkirk Presbyterian Church over there in Urbandale, Iowa, and that's his show from 4 to 4:30. Our guest today is Jerry Owens. He's a mental health counselor with Powell CDC, and, do people, whenever I see my general practitioner doctor at church, because I see him almost every Sunday at church, the last thing I ever want to say to him is, Doc, I'm really feeling bad, or this hurts. Mm-hmm. And I learned that from a dentist friend of mine, because every time they're in a social setting, somebody will walk up to this dentist and say, Doc, I've been having, and he doesn't want to do that. Does that happen to you too?
Yes.
And you have the same feeling, right? I'll leave my work at work.
Yeah, right, exactly. And stuff, especially for me, the stuff, I want to respect people's confidentiality and their privacy. But the main thing, though, if I see, the main thing is to greet them and be happy with them and those sorts of things. And certainly let them know they're welcome, if that's the case, to come back.
All right. I think our next one here is post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is most usually labeled onto a soldier, right? Mm-hmm. Or not?
But not always. Because
when I first learned about post-traumatic stress disorders, when I first started getting into counseling business in the early 1980s at Powell, and there were soldiers coming back from Vietnam, and they used a phrase called "still in Saigon," and that, at least to me, sums it up. They've been stateside or they've been home for 6 months, a year, 2 years, but as far as they're concerned, they're still there. And so what happens for post-traumatic stress disorder is we have experienced something horrific beyond the norm. And a year later, 2 years later, those thoughts, experiences, visions are going off in our mind like a little video. Right. And we don't have any control over those.
Right. All right. Help me understand the difference between, because I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. Guarantee you I don't. Or if I do, tell me. But I don't think I do. But I will tell you that whenever my deck on the back of my house is in the flight plan for plans to land at Des Moines Airport, and they're a little low. And whenever I see that, I think of that plane running into the World Trade Center. I can't see a plane from the bottom without thinking that. What's the difference between that and someone who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder?
Yours is tied to a specific cue.
Okay.
In a certain setting. For post-traumatic stress, it's going to, let's go back to the Vietnam era vets. They would be going down the aisle at Dawes, and they would hear a sound and suddenly, lock up into fight or flight kinds of mode, thinking there was Viet Cong in the next aisle. That kind of stuff.
The most common example is a car backfires.
Mm-hmm, right.
And they think there's gunshots and they hit the ground.
Exactly. Right.
But it's also thoughts and intrusive thoughts of things that they've seen, horrible sights.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be for military people either. It could be emergency service workers.
Right. This is, women who've been raped, okay, people who've been in a motor vehicle accident, people who've witnessed a motor vehicle accident, people who've been beat up, people who witness violence. Of course, 9/11. Talk about something horrific you never expected yourself to envision.
You told me that someone who is psychotic is out of touch with reality. I hear you saying that someone who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder is not in touch with reality.
It's almost the opposite. It's they can't get away from the reality of what's going on of the past. It's the reality. What they talk about clearly happened, but it's 6 years later, and it's still there.
Okay.
Most of us have had a motor vehicle accident, and the next time we get in the car, it's pretty weird. Okay, but generally over time, over 6 months or a year, we get so we can drive normally again, and it isn't scary, and we're not flinching and overreacting to everything. But on the other hand, we've changed permanently. We're going to drive differently because of that motor vehicle accident. Okay, but if someone has post-traumatic stress due to a motor vehicle accident, they're going to overreact to everything around them, and it's just going to be torture to ride with them in the car. It's just awful riding with someone. Yeah.
Doesn't the government provide some type of disability for people who are diagnosed with PSD?
Soldiers, you mean? I mean, if a soldier from Vietnam has post-traumatic stress disorder, they could possibly get some disability. But Joe, average citizen, no. Yeah.
Okay, so PSD is not necessarily a disability.
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, it's, again, we're looking at, there's variation, but 3-4% of the population. This is not uncommon. I mean, you look at children, who, and this is where most of our clients are. They're children who were, beat by their parents. They're children, who were sexually abused by someone. They're children who've witnessed violence. That's a large majority of people with post-traumatic stress disorder.
I remember years ago when I went through Powell, one of those times that the judge made me do it, so I didn't hear anything that I needed. I just was doing it. There was a woman in there who had identified to us that she had been raped. And one of her triggers to flip out was when she smelled the man's cologne.
Yeah.
That she could be walking down Dolls and a guy pass her, and she would just absolutely flip out and think, and in her brain, she was about to be raped.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of post-traumatic stress.
Okay.
Because a neutral cue has become conditioned. So it triggers all that stuff.
Okay, what if you don't actually experience, but you've been told about, like when my mother was killed, and she was killed in Mexico, I didn't see it, but to this day, I have to drive. I don't ride in cars with other people. I drive. Mm-hmm. Is that?
I don't know. I mean, that's... again, you have to have a whole bunch of different symptoms and lots of kinds of functional impairment. To me, that's probably just more an adaptation.
What does the driving have to do with the death of your mother? Why does that tie?
Well, because a teenage driver hit my mother and this other lady and killed them both. So it's just the idea that you can be killed in an automobile or by an automobile.
Were you?
12.
Oh, wow. Ouch.
Yeah. But see, that's an example of, sure, you have some symptoms from that.
Yeah.
And that was something that was awful. Mm-hmm. And you have some symptoms that never go away. But on the other hand, you don't have full-blown post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay?
Yeah.
But and that's what I want to keep saying with all of this stuff I'm talking about. For folks listening, you're going to have some of these symptoms. But when you need help is if life is crummy for you on a day-to-day basis because of emotional pain and you can't learn from your mistakes. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because what's going to happen with all of these disorders, it's going to interfere with our ability to connect to other people, to trust other people, to love other people. I mean, all my clients, what they want is the ability to be intimate. And I'm not talking about sexual intimacy.
Right.
I'm talking about intimacy where we can talk to people about what we really think and feel, and they can accept us.
You're describing my emotions within borderline.
Okay, sure.
Absolutely.
And that's the universality of all these. That's the commonality. I mean, and that's, every client that I've ever talked to, they're alone, they're scared, they're sad, they feel somehow ashamed, and they've lost their ability to connect to other people.
All right, let's take our last break. Jerry Owens is our guest, a counselor of mental health, a mental health counselor with Powell CDC. We're coming back live here on Recovery Monday on KTIA, Iowa. From
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittiesusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Before the top on Recovery Mondays, brought to you by Powell CDC. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and my guest today is Jerry Owens, who's a mental health counselor and professional at Powell. We're going to have another week with Jerry next week because we want to get all this information to you. This is not supposed to be Cliff Notes. This is supposed to be the tough questions. Now, we have not announced that our phone lines are open, but our phone lines are always open. And you can certainly call up and talk with Jerry. And you can even do one of those, I have a friend, and we won't say, oh, you mean you. But, you've got a professional health counselor right here at your fingertips. So feel free to call. And if you want to get a hold of Jerry separately, you can get a hold of him at Powell at 263-2424. All right. Post-traumatic social anxiety disorder, otherwise known as being a nerd.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, what happens, all of us have periods in our life when feel like a nerd, or we feel like we're alone in a crowd.
Sure.
Or, particularly in middle school, we are embarrassed to the nth degree. But what social anxiety disorder means, we are so frightened, so scared, we are not able to initiate and maintain long-term relationships. Anxiety is contagious. And if someone is so anxious and so scared, other people tend to avoid that person because we don't know what to say around that person. That kind of thing. I had a patient who came to me who was a pretty heavy drinker, but on the other hand, he didn't know how to connect to people. And this was a 30-year-old man, I think. He was a dentist. He was a good-looking man. But he said, in addition to drinking a 12-pack a day, he said, I haven't gone out on a date in 5 years. And before that, I never lasted over 3 dates with any woman because I was so nervous. I made them nervous, and they didn't want to talk to me anymore. That's what social anxiety disorder is.
Wow.
It's just, and maybe we had perfectionistic parents. Maybe we were just born too finely tuned, but that's what it is. I mean, I don't know, Carrie, in the movie, that scared little girl.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying the rest of it when she got into all the telekinesis, but that first part, you know, that was, you know, she was horribly scared.
So how do you treat?
And when we're scared, especially when you're young, people mock us.
Yeah.
You know, and do those sorts of things. So with this, we do a different kind of therapy. We do kind of like with post-traumatic stress. We didn't cover that in post-traumatic stress, the kinds of therapy. But we do something called exposure therapy. Because with anxiety, what we think is going to happen is always worse than what really happens about 90% of the time.
Right.
But once in a while, we're right, so then that keeps reinforcing that distorted thought.
Yeah, I love that old term. Even paranoid people get followed from time to time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what maintains it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, last one before we have to go for today, and this is a big one. We may carry this over to next week. Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Okay. And I think with all of because I do want to go back to post-traumatic stress disorder and talk about the treatment with it. So I really appreciate you giving me the extra time to do this. OCD, this is obsessive compulsive disorder. It is form over function. We are so worried about the detail, we drive everybody nuts with being worried about a teeny part rather than the big picture. So someone who is so obsessed with clean hands that they end up with infections on their hand from washing their hand all the time, they're so scared of germs, that would be OCD. In college, I had a friend who was worried about whether he would turn the stove off or not. And so every day we'd have to go home to check the stove. It was never on, but you know, and then that went to other things. Did he leave the door unlocked? Blah, blah, blah. So you have thoughts. Those are the obsession. And then we have compulsions, things we do to try to make the obsession go away.
All right, let me ask a simple question. You've been on the radio with me for 2 hours. You've been on the radio with me for 20 hours. Bob, you've been on the radio with me for
years.
400. You'll never see me do a show without a pencil in my left hand. You'll never see me do a show without my glass water about right there. My headphone box, everything. Is that compulsive?
No.
Okay, why? Because I'm telling you, if Ryan goes 3-2 and points at me, if I don't have a pencil in my hand, I'm scrambling to get one.
That's a habit. But it's not. It doesn't cause dysfunction in your life.
Okay.
You don't lose your job because you need to have a pencil in your hand when you're talking on the radio.
Okay.
Okay. For OCD, this compulsion, this obsession is so strong, it gets in the way of their performing in day-to-day life.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's
I
good.
think that's the same with all of these. We can identify with little parts of it,
Yeah.
but it's the extent to which it interferes with our lives.
Yeah, and is that a therapy thing or is that a medication for the OCD?
I think that's a therapy, isn't it?
I don't know with OCD. I'm not very practiced and experienced in that. I think both. I mean, I think you can do cognitive behavioral therapy, but I also think they give you, I can't remember. It's a specialized antidepressant. I forget which one it is to give you for that. So, yeah. So, yeah.
All right. So we've gotten through some of them. We're going to get to psychosis and personality disorder next week. And
we're going to go back and talk a little more, if I can, about the treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, because that gets into trauma. And trauma is a big part of all this that we really haven't talked much about.
Trauma.
Which
means PTSD.
Right.
So yeah, something you experience that's unusual, out of the ordinary, a shooting,
Yeah, well, you
crash.
do this. You just got done with trauma training, right?
Oh, yeah, I do that.
Yeah, they train you how to traumatize people.
De-stress.
Yeah, no, but you've been through some training on this, right?
Right.
And they teach you how to help people who have been through a traumatic situation.
Right, that's what we do. So it'll be a good one.
Would you say finding out about the death of your mother was traumatic for you?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Absolutely.
But see, not all trauma leads to post-traumatic stress.
No, right.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to have him back. And if he's here for the 2 more weeks, then he gets the 4-week chip for being here for 30 days. No. Jerry, we appreciate it. We look forward to having you back next week as we explore mental health. And I sure hope those of you at home are enjoying this and learning something. And if you've got questions or comments, make sure you jump on the chat or send me an email or just call in. And until we see each other again, I ask you for just one simple thing. Please pray.